Hello everyone, I'm Batman, a bat who loves nature. In this video, I'll show you how to create a VHS transition in Unity without using any paid assets like VHS Pro. This is a free alternative that gets a similar result, perfect for anyone looking to add that retro analog horror vibe to their game. This effect was inspired by my own game, Fractured Psyche, so if you're into retro horror, you can check it out with a link in the description. This video will be put inside a series of videos covering Unity tips and tricks, so if you're into Unity tips and tricks, you can check out that playlist as well through the channel. And as always, all the files used and created in this video will be available on my GitHub. Link to it is in the description. With all that being said, let's put on the mask and begin. So as you might know, this is actually a continue to the previous video I created. You don't have to watch that video to understand this video, but they're kind of related. So the scene is exactly the same as the previous video. I just deactivated the VHS Pro, so we're not gonna actually use anything related to VHS Pro, that paid asset you gotta buy to actually use. Everything is free in this video. And we're gonna do it with the post-processing that is actually added to Unity by default. We have two cameras. First one is here. The second one is here. So we can transition between them. So first thing first, you have to add post-processing to a project. Mine is added. If you don't have it, you have to go to your window, package manager. It's not actually loading it now, but you have to search like post-processing here, and once you find it, you'll be left with something like this. An install button will be shown here inside Unity 6. If you have older Unity versions, I think it was here, you press on the install and the post-processing will be added to your project. And once it's been added, you have to create an empty object. I'm gonna call it VHS transition PP for post-processing. And inside it, you have to add post-processing volume. And once you add it, you have to click on this is global, and you're gonna create a new profile. I have a profile from before, which I can actually use, which is this one. But if you don't have it, there is nothing to worry about. You just click on this new, and you add the effects yourself. The effects we need, one of them, we have to add the color grading for the color effect. Then we need to go to add effect, and we're gonna add chromatic aberration, I think. And I'm gonna activate all of them and deactivate this. Intensity I'm gonna put on 1. It's not gonna change anything because we didn't, give the post-processing layer to our camera. We will do that. This is the setting, put this on fast mode. So let's go to our camera, select your camera. In this case, I'm gonna add it to the camera number 1 because all the transitions are gonna happen on camera number 1. So add component, you're gonna search post-processing layer. So once it's been added, you gotta put this layer on everything. And as you see, the effects happen. And for this, by default, maybe it is on none. You just click on this, so the camera actually gets the effects. So we have to go to our VHS transition. For the color grading, I'm gonna, activate the contrast. So I'm gonna activate the contrast. Once we want to, transition, we have to put the contrast on 100. So I'm gonna, by default, put it on 100. I'm gonna activate post exposure. You can put this on 1. If it is actually too bright for you, you can put this on 0.5, or any lower values. But I'm gonna put it on 1, and I'm gonna actually, touch the saturation as well to make it some kind of black and white when we transition. Then you can even, touch the temperature to make it bluish a little. And once we want to transition, instead of activating and changing the values from the VHS Pro, what we have to do is we just have to deactivate and activate it constantly, and then just transition from camera number 1 to camera number 2. Exactly the same thing we did in the previous video. All the files used and created in this video, like the audio and everything, will be linked in the description. You can download it from my GitHub. So I'm going to create a new C# script. I'm going to call it VHS transition no plugin. Double click to open it up. Like the previous video, we actually need a reference to the effects, the post-processing that I actually said we had to just turn on and off. So we just say public game object. I'm going to call it VHS transition PPGO, which stands for game object. So VHS transition post-processing game object, which we just activate and deactivate to gain the effect. Then we need a boolean like the previous video. So we actually do it once. We just change the camera once. So I'm just gonna say changed state, which is equal to false by default because we didn't, transition from camera number 1 to number 2 at the start. We need a reference to the camera 1 and camera number 2, so we can, deactivate camera number 1 and activate camera number 2. So we need two references. So public game object, player cam 1, and duplicate it, and player cam 2. Then the other thing we need a reference to is the audio, the transition audio. I actually forgot to show you. Let me just show you the transition audio that I'm actually using. So this is the audio I'll be using for the transition, as I did in the previous video. So we need a reference to an audio source to be able to play that audio we just heard. So just gonna say public audio source. I'm gonna call it source. Then we're gonna need a reference to public audio clip. I'm gonna call it clip. Clip is actually the same audio we just heard, the transition audio. I wanna say whenever I press T and we didn't, change the state before, I want to actually transition from camera number 1 to camera number 2 with the VHS transition happening and audio playing. That's everything we have to do. We first have to say if input.getKeyDown, we're gonna say if we press T, for example, and to at the end you have to hold shift and press 7. When we press T and changed state is equal to false. If we press T and we didn't transition before, we can go ahead and transition from camera 1 to camera 2. So what we have to do is, I'm gonna actually do it inside an enumerator because I want to wait for some time, then transition. We have to go down of update and we're gonna create an enumerator. I'm gonna call it VHS transition PPCO, which stands for coroutine. It's gonna give an error, don't worry. We're gonna fix it in the upcoming minutes. Why am I using an enumerator? I'm using an enumerator because inside an enumerator you can wait for some time and do a function. And for the transition, I want to use this function, yield return new, wait for a second, and I want to wait for 0.05 f seconds. And because of that, I'm actually using an enumerator, and an enumerator makes it very easy to use. First, when we press T and change state is equal to false, first thing we have to do is make the change state equal to true, so it doesn't, transition again. And we have to run this enumerator. To actually run this enumerator, you have to say start coroutine double parentheses and just put its name, which is transition PPCO, and that's how to do it. Now we have to go ahead and create the function. First thing first, we have to play the audio, then activate the transition. So to play the audio, we have to go to a source, the audio source we created, dot play one shot, which would actually play an audio clip one time. And the audio clip we want to play is the VHS transition. We just got a reference to, and we're calling it clip. So we need a reference to clip with the capital C, of course. That's gonna play the audio. And once it's playing the audio, we have to go ahead and activate the transition. So to actually do the transition, we have to do one simple thing. We have to activate it, wait for 0.05 f second, and deactivate it, and activate it again, and deactivate it, and do it for like 5 times, and then transition. So we're just gonna say VHS transition PPGO.setActive true. Then we have to say yield return new, wait for seconds, wait for 0.05 f seconds. This is the value I used in my own game, Fractured Psyche, and it actually worked. And because of that, I'm actually using this number. Then again, VHS transition .setActive false. So we activate it and deactivate it, and activate it again and deactivate it again. That's exactly what we have to do. So yield return new, wait for seconds, 0.05 f seconds, and we can just copy it, paste it 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the second time it gets deactivated, we just delete this yield return new, wait for seconds, and in here we say change camera. First I deactivate player cam number 1, then I activate player cam number 2. And the reason for it is because I have Cinemachine virtual camera on both of them, and if 2 cameras are activated with different positions at the same time, the camera number 1's position will be the same as camera number 2. I'm actually, preventing a bug from happening by doing this. Let's go ahead and check it out. I'm going to create an empty object. I'm going to call it script folder. I'm going to drag and drop my script onto the empty game object I just created. It needs a VHS transition post-processing game object. It is this one. I'm going to drag and drop it. Be careful, it has to be deactivated by default in the editor. Then I need a reference to player cam number 1, which is this one, player pack number 1, and this one is player pack number 2. We need an audio source. I will give my audio source to my script holder, so I'm going to click on this add component, audio source. I can drag and drop my audio source here. You can even drag and drop your object here. You can even click on the circle and find your object. Then I need a reference to the audio clip I want to find. I'm going to click on this lock, so whenever I press anywhere, it won't change this inspector tab. I have to go to my sounds and find the audio. This is the audio. I'm going to drag and drop my audio to this audio clip section, and I'm going to unlock it. So everything's been given now. We can go ahead and check it out. I said if I press T, it should activate. We have to do it 4 times. 4 times is actually better. So just change this 5 times, delete 1 time. It is from here, so I'm gonna delete 1 time of it. We can go ahead and check it out. I'm gonna press T. See, that happened, and we came to this camera. So that's how to create a transition in Unity. It was actually simulating the VHS transition that I used from the VHS Pro asset, which was a paid asset. I thought, what if you want to, not pay for that asset and you want to create a transition similar to that one, and this video was created for that reason. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, a like would be amazing. You can subscribe to see more contents like this. Thank you so much for all your support. Hope all the best for you, and I'll see you in the next video.